born at home, Fort Hall, Idaho, on an Indian reservation, August 26, 31. When I came along, there was already several in the family. I'm from a family of 10. 4 brothers and 5 sisters. Blanche, Irene, Grace, Warren, Elmer, Lucille, myself, Norma, Curtis, and Larry.
One of the great things about Shirl is how much he loves his brothers and his sisters all his life.
I was named Shirley Sean Davis. Middle name was Irish. 2 years before I was born, Shirley Temple was born. And about that same time, she came out and got famous and kind of changed to a girl's name. So I've had to live with that a long time. My father's name was Howard Milton Davis, and my mother's name was Minnie Sarah Barry Davis. And probably remember my mother cooking an old wood stove. My father's, he was gone a lot of the time. He was a hard worker, and we had a threshing machine. He threshed grain, barley and wheat and oats, alfalfa seed, beans. He had a machine with a tractor on it, and they used to come with their horse and wagons and unload them to the hopper, and out come the seed. My dad was a carpenter, very good one, and he built a good share of the homes on the Fort Hall Indian Reservation. My father was deadbeat Republican, and I kind of followed him, but I will vote both ways if I see the vote for the person. My mother outlived my dad by about 5 or 6 years. He had a stroke and passed away, and she got along pretty good, single, before she died, and she died of cancer, stomach cancer. I only had the opportunity to meet my grandmother on my mother's side. Her folks were from Ireland. That was the Irish in me. My sister Grace helped raise me. She changed my diapers and all that kind of stuff. I don't ever remember having a birthday party. Maybe it'd be a cake, and that was about it. I finally got a red wagon for Christmas, and I used to get out on Highway 91 and go to the grocery store and get groceries. We had a charge account at the grocery store, so I'd get my list and I'd go and get groceries. Come back down the highway, right in the middle of the highway. Had very few cars those days. School at Fort Hall and Fort Hall Elementary School. Walked about a mile each way. Got in fights a lot with the Indian kids, a lot of those. One was a Japanese kid at school, and then he did jiu-jitsu on me. Threw me over his back on the concrete, and I was out for a while. Never messed with him again. He became a good friend. I remember my brothers, we were out at the Snake River, and my uncle had a herd of sheep, and he had some horses there, and he had the horses penned up with just a 1-strand electric wire around them. And this was at night, and we lived in Fort Hall, quite a ways away, and they were teasing me and saying they were going to run off and leave me, and you know how boys are. I went to run out and hit this fence, and just about knocked my eye out. Had 7 or 8, 9 stitches taken in it. Just about lost an eye. We had to go to the Fort Hall Indian Reservation. The nurse that worked there soaked off the cloth I had on it and sewed me up. My dad had the threshing machine, and he took off and left me, and I wanted to go with him. He was in the car then. It had the spare tire on the back end and old bumpers, so I went and ran and got on the bumper and rode all the way with him. I think I got a spanking for that, for my dad, and then a spanking for my mother when I got home. I was born in a depression. Nobody had any money, but we had enough to put food on the table. And farmhouse at those days, and we had an outhouse. No built-in bathrooms at all. We did have electricity finally. No telephones. You worked as a family and made what you could. Had a large farm. We had 160 acres, and then the house that was down on the bottom land, and then we had 40 acres where we were. We raised potatoes and beets and beans and all that type of stuff. We had cattle to milk, we had pigs to feed, and all kinds of livestock, horses, and I used to have to do the job of cutting up the chickens' heads. We'd have 7 or 8 chickens for dinner. It's a lot of work. A lot of work. We had lots of pets. We farmed dogs and cats. I had a horse, Babe, gray roan. My first horse was a Shetland, and that thing used to bite me on the rear every time I tried to get on. It'd reach right around and grab you, nip you. So we got rid of that, and then I think I started riding bareback, and finally I got enough money together to buy a saddle. I did get a buggy once, and I was able to hook her to the buggy and teach her. And boy, we used to trot down the road. It was real good transportation. We had good times together. Even though we didn't attend church, we did take the day off and rested and ate and napped and that type of thing. And we used to go to fishing trips, Mackey Lake, Idaho, and Island Park area. And then we used to go to Island Park and we'd have a sort of a vacation and bring back a load of trees and build cellars out. We used to go down in the Indian bottoms. We had the bottoms down there with rivers that run through there and go swimming in there, but it was awfully cold. It was good fishing though. Caught my first fish there, about 3-pound rainbow. I got it clear up to the bank and come off the hook and I dove for it. And got it. I was using the willow for a fishing pole, you know, with a line on it. We had an old pickup. I hauled fuel on it and had some other guys on it, and the only gear I knew was low. Finally, one of the guys says, "Aren't you going to shift this thing?" That's how I learned how to drive, about 10 years old. If you need it, you learn. I used to trap rabbits, sold the pelts, and got 2 cents a piece out of them or something. When we finished work on our farm, the neighbors needed help. And I think I was making about 25 cents an hour then. I was not a very nice guy. I was breathing the gas off of the 50-gallon drums. Give you a high, and I just about died from that. They found me that night about 9 o'clock, passed out. My sister found me. We had no religion at all. But later on in life, I used to go to Mutual when we lived in Riverton. So I got acquainted with the church there. I went through the 8th grade at Fort Hall. Then I started school in Blackfoot High School. But I liked English and I liked physics, wood shop, made cedar chests, lamps, anything to do with poems. I didn't care about those. My freshman year I went out for football and they put 2 big bruisers against me and knocked me about 10 feet back, and I quit and took up boxing. So then I boxed the rest of the time I was in high school. I loved it. I started out at 105 pounds and ended up 125. They called that featherweight. I did pretty good. I'd lettered out 3 years. In those days, there was 3 rounds of boxing, and if you got a nosebleed like I did, they would stop the fight and then add up the points. And I won a lot of fights on my nosebleed to train, and we had to run every night, and then go home and milk cows. And boxing coach was a great guy. He kind of took us in like a family, all the boxers, and acted just like our father, you know. Made us feel good. In fact, Bonnie and I went to see him just before he died, which was a good thing. I think I was in Wi-Fi Club, 2 or 3 of them had something to do with athletics. I love to dance. Jitterbugs and foxtrots and waltzes, the old time ones. And 3 of us, Ronald Stott, Junior Brown, Darwin Wright, and I used to get together and go to Yellowstone Park every summer. We'd spend a week up there fishing and sightseeing, and we camped out in tents. I went with a girl by the name of Lila, that was before I was in the Navy. Dated her in my junior year too. And then I used to want to date Bonnie, but she was always busy. But we still got along real well in high school. Right out of high school, I went and stayed with my sister. My brother-in-law was a foreman for Mountain States Construction out of Pocatello, and he hired me, and I learned how to finish concrete. We used to do subdivisions where we did the curbing, and it was hard work. I remember the theater at Mission Theater in Blackfoot, Idaho was 9 cents a day. Watch all the movies you wanted. Gas, I think, was about 15 cents a gallon. It was kind of neat when we got phones in the house, but you were on a party line with about 9 other people. And so if somebody stayed on the line too long, you had to have the operator tell them to get off the line so you could make a phone call. Most everybody my age were either already got their letters or they were on their way. So we hurried down to the Navy recruiting officer rather than going to the Army, and 30 of us enlisted in one day. I was in the Navy Air Forces. I went through boot camp in San Diego, and then I was stationed in El Centro, California, Naval Air Station. We developed the seed ejection there. I was an area photographer. We'd set up cameras out on the desert, and they'd have bomb drops, and we'd have to shoot pictures of them to see what happened. We had the big Mitchell cameras like they use in Hollywood, and we had the high-speed ones where we could take 1,000 frames a second, and that would stop the action on that, and so you could see everything. We had an ambulance made over into a truck that we went out in and had a refrigerator in, so we'd have to leave the film in there. It would be 120 degrees out in the desert, and then we'd run the film right to the camera, shoot the pictures and get it back in, or otherwise the emulsion would come right off of the film. And the last 10 feet of the film, the emulsion would be gone. I did a lot of photography, air to air. I designed a belt that I could put on me and hang out of the flying boxcars with a camera, get away from the vibration of the plane. Yeah, it was very interesting work. I was set to go aboard an aircraft carrier when I got injured. I was headed for Phoenix. We had a weekend party type thing over at this place that another friend of mine had. So I had my car and we took off, and 12 miles out of Gila Bend where the road dips, and we were driving along, and down the bottom of the dip and another car hit us and just about took my whole left side off. I saw him coming, but I got my left wheels were a foot on the pavement when I got hit. And we found out later there was another car parked in the bottom of there with its lights off. And of course I went over like this, and I kind of fell out of the car when they sprung the door open. The troopers came out, took me back to Gila Bend, thinking there'd be a doctor there. Couldn't find a doctor there. I was in the back seat of the police car trying to hold a tourniquet on my arm, which wasn't very good. I kept passing out. Then they went in, and since I was military, they went to one of the military bases, the Army first. Couldn't find a doctor there. It was getting late by then. And finally got a hold of the Navy doctor, and they run me right into the civilian hospital. And I spent 10 days there. I got gas gangrene in my arm. They just about cut it off. But I had a good doctor that saved what I do have today. I went to the San Diego hospital, Balboa. I was in there for 6 months, and then finally they lost my records. They had me AWOL, absent without leave. And they'd sent my records over to the destroyer base at Balboa, and here I was in the hospital getting treatments every day, physical therapy. Finally I went and demanded what they call a captain's mast, where you can go in and gripe to the captain. And that's all it took, was me threatening them with it. They got busy, and the next day I was on a plane for Frisco and then to Salt Lake City, the Veterans Hospital, where they operated on my arm there, and I was in the hospital for about 3 months there. Finally got discharged out of the Navy. I knew I had to go to college then, because I couldn't go back to construction, that was sure. She was 2 years younger, yeah, about 21. Well, she was a female, I was a male. She was about to finish her nurse's training, and I was just starting school. I was in Salt Lake, the Veterans Hospital, after I got out of the Navy. And she was in nurse's training, but her sister lived in Salt Lake. So she was visiting there. I was giving her a ride back to Pocatello, a friend of mine. And his car. And I remember her sitting by me, and she had a suede coat on, one of these western coats. It got all over my pants, the suede. We got together then and dated a couple of times, and then I went to school in Moscow, and I was up there for a semester, and come back, and that's when we set a date, 15th of December '54. I loved her, and I hope she loved me. Was in Blackfoot at her mother's house with Bishop Lewis marrying us from Blackfoot. She had a sister and a brother, both of them, and spouses were there, and of course her folks. And I had a good friend I was in the Navy with, who was best man. She had some other friends that were bridesmaids, and it wasn't a large wedding. But everybody from Blackfoot went to Pocatello and got a motel. Then we went to Salt Lake, stayed there for a couple of days and back. We rented our first place from my sister, and it was a house in the back of her house. She had two boys, and they got half of the house, and we got the half with the bedroom and bathroom and kitchen. And we just boarded up the entrance between us. And of course she would go one way and I'd go the other. I'd go to college, and she was going to nurses training at St. Anthony Hospital. So we were apart a lot. The only work I could do was tending bar. I had the day shift. I'd wait tables at night, on weekends. And so I was able to do that while I was going to school. It was a big change from being single to being married, getting used to each other and learning. I was in mostly business and economics. I started out in accounting, but decided I didn't like that. Changed over to business, and I took a few law courses. Finished with a degree in business and pre-law. We got married in December. I started Idaho State. Again, between that time, I'd had a lawsuit going in Arizona over my arm, which I won, and was able to buy a house with the proceeds from that. We had a house in Alameda area in Pocatello, and that's where we lived until we got out of college. And Marge finished nurses training there. Was planning on going to University of Idaho Law School, but we started a family and decided I better not go. The reason I did get baptized, they had lost her records, and she had to get rebaptized. So we both got baptized at the same time. 1962. There was not the follow-through like they have nowadays. I guess that we just didn't go to church as much. The kids went to church, and Marge went to church a lot, but sometimes I didn't. Shauna was born in 1956. Then Margot was 5 years later. Then Sid was 5 years later than that. 3 girls. Shauna was kind of a combination. My middle name's Sean, so we put an A on it, and Marge's middle name is Kay, and so it was Shauna Kay. And the other two she named. We used to have a family home evening. We'd go to the high school and swim. We did that every Monday night during the winter. When Shauna was born, she was about 6 months. I had bought a little Nash Rambler, one where you could lay the seats down, and we fixed it up in the back seat for her bed. My sister they were building a highway up by West Jellystone, Montana, and so we decided to go up there and see her. They lived in a little log cabin up there while he was on the project, so we stayed there a night or two, and then we said, well, why don't we go on and make a loop and go to Coeur d'Alene, and so we did. We headed on the road, and she borrowed clothes from my sister Blanche, pedal pushers and stuff like that, We drove on up and come to a town where it was up near Glacier Park, Browning, Montana, and they were having an Indian powwow. There was all kinds of teepees and everything there. We couldn't find a place to stay. There was a trailer house. We had to get milk fixed for the baby and everything. The Indians were in charge of it, and they just loved the baby. Took Shauna away. They wanted to hold her all the time. And they let us stay there in a trailer house all breed. Then we went on and went up to Glacier and where else? Into Washington and made a trip there around. It was really a great trip.
I can remember always wanting to be very helpful. And I can remember one time when I was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, and we went camping, and we would go to camping to Redfish Lake in the summertime. And I was kind of a firebug. I played in the fire a lot. And I noticed that my dad was kind of far off in the fire, and he was working on something. And it was dark over there. And I just really felt like he needed some kind of a torch so he could see. So I lit this stick on fire and walked over there to come to find out he's yelling at me going, "Get away from me, Margot! Get away! I'm trying to light this." He was pumping this thing up that was gonna, if it came near fire, it would go boom, you know. And so, you know, and I'm a big crybaby, and so then, you know, I go and throw my stick in the fire and cry, you know, and go back to the tent. And he came back and he's like, "I'm so sorry, I hurt your feelings, Margot, but, you know, sometimes you can't be super helpful, you know, all the time." But we did do a lot of camping, and we would go to the lake and go fishing and do a lot of things. Not so much together, but he was always there.
Then I went to work for the state and was stationed in Blackwood, Glens Ferry area, and we were there for a good many years. Then they started a new program with the state for the people that, 3 of us that had gone through school and graduated. We were accepted into a new program where we learned right-of-way acquisition and appraisals, title, everything that had to do with real estate and acquisition for the property to be used for highways at that time. 1968, I was given a promotion in Boise. I had the whole area from Lewiston to Mountain Home, and I worked there for about a year and a half and got an offer to go to Alaska that I had to turn down at the first year because Marge's folks were near death. A year after that, they called me and I accepted a position in Anchorage. And we bought a little motor home and headed out. It was about 2 or 3 years old. Margot would have been about 5 years older than that. And Shauna would have about to start her first year in high school. And we lived there until all the kids were out of school. And I retired in '87 from the state up there. I started out as the chief review appraiser for the whole state. And then I was the assistant chief right-of-way agent in Anchorage. Highways, airports, anything to do with the state. They needed land to develop. We did everything. Title work, did the appraisals and the acquisition. I helped the attorneys in condemnation cases in court. In Alaska, most of your mode of transportation was by airplane. So I had to go into a lot of the Indian villages and do my work on airports. Alaska has more airports than any other state. Being able to go in and rent a float plane and a pilot and have them take us into those villages, which was pretty neat. I got to watch some of the Indians there when they would bring salmon in, and the women would fillet them with ulus, knives, and you could watch them do a 30-pound salmon in about 5 minutes. They could pull that out and cut it up in strips, and then they laid it up in like a willow root, and they'd lay the salmon up there and let it dry out. That was their winter food. Later on, when I retired from the state, we moved up. We redid a little cabin and put a new kitchen on in the bedroom, and that was in Beaver Lake, Alaska. I had a nice dock with 2 boats right on the water. Nice deck and a hot tub, and it was very nice there. When I was in college in Pocatello, all my friends played golf, and the golf course would let us go play golf on the course for free. Of course, we were broke students, I said, no, I can't. I probably can't do it with my arm like it is. So finally they forced me into playing. And I liked it real well. Played several courses in my lifetime, all over the state of Idaho and now all over the state of Utah and some in Nevada. Like most about it. Getting out and getting exercise. I don't play that well, but I enjoy getting out and swinging at the little white ball. And I have gotten one hole-in-one in my life in Yuma, Arizona. And I played with Jim Sandberg, who was my fishing partner too. We played a lot of golf in Alaska. Lefty Mickelson has been my favorite. Jim Sandberg and he bought the boat. I helped with the expenses, working on it, and everything else. We kind of worked together on it. And we had 6 shrimp pots, a big crab pot, so we could go to Homer or Seward or wherever we wanted and put those down and let them soak. And usually every evening we pull up the shrimp pot, a couple of them, and have shrimp. And we found the spot. It's in a lake above Halibut Cove. And if you ever got up there with a boat, when the tide went out, you were stuck there. You had to wait till the tide come back in order to get back out. The boat was just right for 2 people. We had a kitchen on it and sleeping area and a potty. We had to have that. We got stuck up there and we put the shrimp pots out. Lo and behold, we were getting 8 and 9 inch shrimp, like big prawns, just the biggest one we'd ever seen. And it'd fill the buckets real fast with them. But we had a lot of fun there. We had a little rubber raft. We could paddle that, anchor the boat out and then paddle it to shore and go hiking. We did a lot of hiking in the woods. And some of the land was, we might have been the first one on it, ever. Oh, the sturgeon was my brother's who in Glens Ferry in the Snake River, and he took me out to catch one of those, and I caught I don't know, it was 200 and some pounder, brought it in and then released it. But I wouldn't bait it. The bait was so rotten that it would make me sick to put it on the hook. First time I ever had somebody else bait a hook for me. They have a long pole. It's about a 10-foot long pole that you catch those with, good sized. And I was able to do that. Well, the one trip that I caught the 220 pounder, it was on a Labor Day weekend. And it was at Homer, and I said, oh, let's stop here. Our favorite spot, just for a couple minutes. And I hooked that 220 pounder. Anyway, we had more halibut and we knew what to do with it. Oh, she's a good cook. Took care of the kids real well. She liked to mess around with the piano. She wasn't real good at it, but she played the piano. She's worked in Idaho. She was the head nurse on Idaho State Hospital in South in Blackfoot, Idaho. I think that was 600 patients at that time. And she worked in mostly OB in Pocatello. And then we went to Alaska and she went to work at the state hospital up there. And she worked for a while, but she didn't really care for it. It was kind of there was people there that knew that she was from a big hospital and they didn't treat her very well. But she quit working after a while. We retired in '87 from Alaska, and I was just 55. It was 1990 or 91. She got breast cancer and went through chemotherapy and radiation both. And then she was clean for 5 years, and then it came back in her throat and went through radiation again, and right in the mouth, which was terrible. She couldn't eat. And then not too long after, I was wondering what was wrong with her. She was getting dizzy and everything. It went to her brain, and she died in Yuma, the 3rd of February, 1998. We met in the study hall. Her name was Gardner and mine was Davis, so we sat pretty close together. I wrote a letter to her when I found out Thane had died. Gave her my consolation and so forth. But we started calling each other. Long calls. We should have owned the telephone company by then. I've never talked that long in my life. But I was pretty lonesome, living alone up at the lake, and everybody go to work all during the week. I wouldn't see anybody till weekends. I did go golfing maybe twice a week, meet the guys over at Palmer. So I was pretty lonesome. And I think she was too. I came down with a motorhome. I brought the dog, Minnie.
It was in the fall. You came by.
I remember she came out of the door and she had on a yellow outfit.
And he hated yellow.
No, I didn't. We were quite apprehensive and didn't know how to act, did we?
No, but when he first came to see me, it was in the fall of the year. We didn't get married till the next year after
July.
that. Prior to that, Yvette was there they were all there, and we were talking, and Shirl was coming, and I said, Shirl will be coming, and I'll probably be alone. And Lacey spoke up and she says, well, that will be all right. I can be your chaperone. And Vince said, Lacey, I think Grandma can take care of herself. Lacey was 9 years old and she would be our chaperone. After Shirl came, we played games and talked and had a good time. And when he left to go out to his motorhome to sleep, Yvette was there when she spoke up and she said, Mom, I like him. I don't think you should put him under the table. And I thought about that a lot, that they liked him right off. First night that we were married, we both knelt and prayed and took our turns and have been praying together. Shirl began with a few little simple words, but now he is able to give full priesthood prayers and takes his turn regularly, as do I. This is a great blessing because he has grown and I have grown in faith and trust in each other and in prayer and in family love and kindness and in being together.
Not sad anymore and look forward to doing things every day. And well, that's when I got back into the church. I decided to go to the temple. He put a high-speed forward on it and I was able to get my Melchizedek priesthood in the wintertime, wasn't it?
January the 7th.
Yeah, January, right. And at the same time I was sealed to Marge and sealed to Shauna, and that was when Carrie was sealed to Richard. And we had a good time at San Diego, and I married into a great family. We love church, people, get-togethers, family, traveling in our RV as we count our blessings and give thanks to Heavenly Father. Please call us or drop by anytime. Yeah, we've had, 3 or 4 motorhomes.
He introduced me to the life of traveling to Yuma for the winter months.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoy more than anything family relationship.
Yes.
We love our families very dearly on both sides. He is very faithful at this time in being a home teacher for the past 17 years, the way that he has treated my family and been like a father and a grandfather, not only to his children, my children as well. And he has truly loved studying the scriptures. And Shirl's a dedicated, honest man.
She helps me a lot with all religious things every day. If it wasn't for her, I'd be lost.
I am very thankful that he was able to meet Bonnie again later in his life and marry Bonnie, because Bonnie has helped make him a better person. She's helped make him a better father for us and and for our grandchildren. And I don't think that had he have not met her and married her and gotten active in the church, that he would even be alive today.
No, he wouldn't.
We enjoy traveling together. First one was a cruise to the
Caribbean.
Caribbean. The one lady took us for a drive all over Florida area. Showed us Tiger Woods' mother's house, places that we would have never been. So it was enjoyable to do that.
We went to Disney World
We've been to Branson twice.
twice.
Our oldest daughter, Shauna, and her husband, Patrick, decided on our 80th birthday to take us to New Zealand and Australia for a month. It was one of the highlights of our lives, both of us. We've been to Hawaii together twice. Both Bonnie and I have a collection, and we decided on every trip we went on to bring just something with the name of the area where we were in. First of all, was with Shauna. She was very conscientious about the gospel. Looked forward to going to Mutual when she was younger, and I took Shauna to early morning seminary.
Nobody was really awake except Dad. I guess I got that from him too, because I'm an early morning riser and I feel best in the morning.
Out to a member's house in Anchorage, and it was usually around 5 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes it'd be 20 and 30 below zero. And it took about 20 minutes each way.
We just rode together. It was just a time to be with him. He dropped me off every morning on his way to work.
She never missed a day when she graduated from it.
And Dad and I haven't always had a good relationship, but over the years, we've worked it out. Everybody deals with things like this in their lives, and everybody can work it out, and that's good. And one of the things that I'm really thankful for that Dad's given me, even though, you know, when you're younger, you think, oh, I'm never going to be like my parents, and then you grow up exactly like your parents. And one of the things that I've always appreciated is Dad has a great work ethic, and I've inherited that. Not only does he feel a duty and a responsibility to work, but he likes it. And that's how I feel. So I feel like that pattern has been good. It's the other thing that I appreciate from Dad. I'm an energetic person, and I think I got that from him. He always has a project. I always have a project. And if I'm left alone too long with too much time on my hands, I create lots of projects, to the point where sometimes I'm stressed out, and then I think, dang it, Dad, why do we always have to have projects? But he always did. And I think it's good to be busy. It's helped me through a lot of times in my life, and I've appreciated that. I've grown to love Dad very much and appreciate him, the man he is. And I think he's an honorable man. He's lived a very honorable life. And I think things are going to be good for him on the other side of the veil.
I think she's always had a good testimony. I don't think she would ever sway from the church. And then with Margot, I remember she started working at a credit union as a teller, and it helped her learn a little bit about the financial end of things. And she also worked at Sizzler Cafe in Anchorage, and she always told us, don't ever go there and eat because it's lousy food. We never did.
I left home at a very young age and have only been able to visit with my dad just sporadically. But every time that I've visited with him, our relationship has grown, and he has become much more emotionally approachable. So I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to spend time with him, even if it's just brief time.
Well, Sid, because she's a good kid. My mother asked me one day why I named her a boy's name, Sydney. I says, why did you name me Shirley? I says, we're both in trouble. She was a lot like Shauna, and she played softball a lot. And we went to all the games. When we'd take her out of town, usually they provided housing for her. But when we had the trailer house, she had to stay in the trailer house with us. She wouldn't stay with somebody else.
Well, Dad, I've got so many stories. The one thing that I remember about Dad, and like Shauna said, he did teach us work ethic in the very, very beginning. But he told me one time, I remember it was right after I'd gotten my managerial position. And I was kind of telling him about all these problems I was having with all the employees and how they, I couldn't get anybody to work. And he said, you know what, Sid? A good thing to do is when you hire somebody, first thing that you do the first day, doesn't matter what they're doing, give them a broom and make them sweep something. He said, because I can guarantee you, you'll know what the work ethic is on how they clean up that room. Now, if they don't clean it up very well, get rid of them and get somebody else who can sweep the crap out of that room. Then you'll have a good employee that you can keep forever and ever. No, I'll never forget that. I was like, that is really, and I've used it to this day, and it works. It does work. Dad and I had a different, I was the youngest. These guys were kind of gone, so I did get to spend a little bit more time with him on a one-on-one basis. I kind of see myself as the son that he never had because we did a lot of fishing together. We did a lot of hands-on projects, fixing things. Taught me how to tune up a lawnmower, those kinds of things that he didn't have a boy, so I guess I was the one. Over the years, we all three have had our differences with him at different times, but he's taught me some pretty good lessons in life that I've used all my life, and I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah, I make lists. I
Nice.
got that from him.
We all
I'm a
make-
list
we all
maker.
make lists.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
I got that from him.
I think I know more now. Maybe I would have done things a little different, but everything's worked out pretty well in my lifetime.
So my grandpa, Davis, I have so many good memories. First of all, some of the fun stories were things when I was little, like he would always save his bills, like the leftover papers, and put them neatly back in the envelopes and make the envelopes look resealed. And then when I would come over and I was 5 or 6, I could do bills at his desk in his special office. So he would sit me up there and I could open up the envelopes and write out the bills, and then he would do something with them. I don't know, like say he was mailing them or something. And I just felt so big and special to be in his neatly organized office. Another thing that he would do is we'd go to the Alaska State Fair every year, and they had a cabin on a lake, and so we'd always go stay with him. And the first thing we'd do is go out on a boat ride. Always a boat ride. He was a big time boater, and then he would save this huge can of quarters. And it's not really easy to spend this can of quarters at the fair, but every year without fail we had the can that we would take with us, and somehow we would manage to spend the quarters at the fair. And really the thing that I really wanted to say, there's so many different attributes he has that I really admire and that I think about in my own life. One of the things I love is that he's an extrovert. He loves to visit with people, he loves to be in contact with people, and he loves to have everyone around. And I really love that. Not all men are as welcoming as him or as door opening as he is. It's more of us women that are visitors, but Grandpa loves to visit and loves to have friends and go and do things. He's a doer. I remember he was always repainting his house every year, like the inside. Nobody repaints their house every year, but he did when we were growing up. And I love his work ethic and his drive and his love and his passion. And he was handsome. He's my most handsome grandpa. And he was a boxer. We always thought that was really neat that he boxed. And just his example of being good and doing the right thing no matter what. It's such a dying thing nowadays for some, but he, really exemplified that generation of doing the right thing and, doing what you should do to be happy in life. And so I'm just really going to miss him. I love you, Grandpa.
I have 9 grandchildren and one that was murdered, Megan. I counted a lot on Bonnie for helping me out a lot with how everything that happened there. Somebody asked me if there was worst things that ever happened in your life, and I answer them by Megan's being murdered. Great-grandchildren, there'll be 9, including Josh, who is Margot's son, and they'll have another one this summer. And one of them was Kate's, that was adopted, that we considered as my granddaughter. I love them all a lot and hope they have good lives and they're able to pay all their bills and make a living, and so just really love them. I love you very much, and I love all my new family, all of those kids that are in there too. which number is a little bit higher than what I have. I love them very much, and their parents also. Have a religion and believe in God and be honest and truthful in your dealings with everybody. Be sincere. Get a good education. If you do go to church, keep the commandments and pay your tithing. To have been baptized in the LDS church. That's number one. Heavenly Father has helped me a lot. I know I enjoy going to church. I believe the gospel is true, and I believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet, a good leader, and all the other prophets that we've had are very good and good to follow, and I believe in Christ, and I enjoy everything about the church at this point in my life. I love you very much.